You have one of the top rated charter schools. You have great teachers, great education, high rated grades, especially for this type of school.
I was always that kid one decision away from being in a lot of trouble or being in a bad spot.
Every time you're trying to find your purpose, one of the best ways you can do is look back at your life. What is deep in you? What injustice? What is part of your story that either has brought pain or healing? That could be a compass to what do I need to invest my life in? I feel like doing business now is harder than ever been. I think doing good work like that can even be more challenging, especially within the state.
That was another shocking thing that came back on these surveys is we asked the parents, how much screen time do you think your kids get a day?
Yeah.
And their estimation was 3 to 4 hours a day, which is still a lot. We asked the kids the same question. The average answer was
This is the Unleash Your Purpose podcast.
All right, welcome to Unleash Your Purpose podcast with your host, Ryan Centers. I'm with my good friend, James Meehan, and I am excited for you to be on the show. We actually...
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. We got to know each other through a CEO peer group here in Phoenix, and as I got to know your story, I hear stories all the time, and I listen to hard things, and maybe you as a dad, but the story that you shared actually the first time we met honestly floored me. And it honestly rocked me in a really big way. And it was probably, I told my wife and my best friend, dude, this guy is the real deal. And how one, God saved your life. And number two, it helped reorient your life and your journey in a really powerful way. Yeah. So I was like, dude, it's been a really powerful thing. So so tell us a little bit about, your journey and most recently kind of what's been going on. And then I want to kind of transition into business if that's okay too.
So I moved to Arizona when I was 13 years old, and It was really a result of, I was a tough kid to my mom and my stepdad. And I decided, I guess that's about the age you can kind of decide which parent you want to live with, right?
Yeah,
so I chose to move out here to live with my dad.
Okay.
And continued through high school to be a pretty tough kid. And this will tie into probably more of our business discussion later on. But, I was always that kid one decision away from being in a lot of trouble or being in a bad spot. Luckily, I had parents that were clued in enough and involved enough, and quite frankly, had the resources to kind of help me through that.
Sure.
And kind of one of the big turning points in my life was I kept getting in trouble. My parents sent me to a private Christian school where I was most importantly saved. This in the fall of that first year of me being there. And then probably the second most important thing is that's where I met my wife.
Okay.
So we dated for years and years, and we've now been married for 15 years. So,
oh wow, yeah.
Probably the more recent journey that God took us on was in May of this past year. At 39 years old, I had a stroke. It was a situation where I had a typical long day of work and high stress, and went home to do my workout like I normally do. That's how I relieve a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And halfway through my workout, I get the worst headache right down the center of my head. It's where I walk out of the gym. It's in my home, and I tell my wife I have the worst headache. So I go to the freezer, I grab an ice pack, lay on the couch and put it on my head. And then my 6-year-old son grabs an ice pack for his head and lays on top of my chest, and puts the ice pack on his head. My wife has a picture of that. And that's really the last thing I remember until for about 30 days while I was in the ICU at Mayo Clinic.
Wow.
Yeah. Statistically, I should either not be here or I should have significant physical or cognitive deficiencies.
After a stroke, your memory is totally impaired. You can't even process information, like be able to have a conversation like this. And now you lead a huge organization, and your cognitive abilities are at the top of its game still.
Yeah. I still can notice some subtle differences, but most people can't. I process a little slower than I used to, which is probably a good thing. Actually, like slow down and like think before I speak, kind of thing.
So now you're kind of on the other side of it, recovering. You have this traumatic situation. How is it with your bride, with Kelly? How is she?
Yeah.
How do you navigate through that after that's the whole thing?
Yeah. At first there were some really hard moments of like realizing, oh, like here's these patterns we were in, and they were forcibly broken while I was in the hospital.
Okay. Like patterns, like routines, or how you communicate with each other.
All the above.
Really?
Yeah. Or even how we interact with things. Like good example. I had this pattern of, in every situation, I would step in and try to fix something.
Sure.
Right. So I'm like shouldering this burden of, I'm perceiving that you're unhappy or something's not right. So I'm going to step in and fix it. And I would do it with my kid. I would do it with everybody.
Yeah.
And that just added to the stress of just what my lifestyle is in general. So that's something that I'm now hyper aware of, and more selective about what am I going to step in to, as opposed to just listening. Like not every problem needs to be solved by me.
Right.
But I can listen and be there for people, and maybe provide some guidance if I have any to give. But it can stop there.
I wonder if it's like a guy thing. Like I always had the advice to give for Sarah, and I'm like, I was just looking at my calendar. Like tomorrow we have therapy. I'm like, oh, no. I had a Christmas break. I figured I was going to have a little break. She's like, oh, look, it's on the calendar. Yeah. Awesome. And we have this like cycle, and there's always this part of me that wants to fix and it's a sense of obviously control, and create this perfect picture of our life. And I'm like, it's just not serving at 17 years in with 11 kids. It just doesn't serve us anymore. It doesn't serve. Like it may have been helpful in the early days, but I'm like, this is like, I just need to let my wife be my wife, and I need to live my best self that I can be, and just love her for that. And if I can do that really well, then I'm probably going to be able to, our marriage is going to be a better spot.
Yeah.
Even this morning, we have this thing. So I go to the gym early in the morning. I like in the 4:00 hour time, and usually about halfway through my workout, 5:30, she'll text me, always like a morning few questions, and it's good. Sometimes it's good stuff,
Yeah.
And then it was today about our scheduling something with the kids or one of our staff, and when they're working and she's not speaking up. Hey, you need to be more direct. You need to communicate. You're like, who the hell? I'm like midway through squats. I'm like, who the hell wants to hear at 5:30 in the morning from your spouse about what you should fix? What is wrong with me? After I just said, I'm not going to care. And I'm just going to and then after I had to reset myself, I'm like, no, I'm going to go do some crunches, practice some gratitude. I'm like grateful for my wife, grateful for my life. And I'm just, why am I trying to it's like I have to intentionally force myself to get back into that mindset of that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just a constant battle.
Yeah. And even for us, not slipping back into those patterns is a daily struggle.
Yeah.
But people will ask me, are you feeling back to normal?
Yeah.
And one of the ways I usually answer is, well, normal
didn't serve me well, right?
Isn't my goal anymore. I'm trying to build into something different.
Ooh.
Which is going to take time.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of.
What's the vision you see?
A few things. The priority for me right now is fully optimizing my health. So getting the blood pressure under control, getting to the root cause of that. When you have a brain injury like that, it really messes up your hormones. And so getting all of that, allowing the brain to continue to heal. So those things balance back out. So, the vision for it is a much healthier, leaner, stronger me.
You've dropped a bunch of weight already though.
No, not really.
No.
I mean, since my stroke, my weight was like on an upward trajectory, like crazy. It's now like,
because it just screws with your hormones a ton.
Yeah. And as men, when your testosterone drops like that, you can't control your weight.
Yeah.
So, I've been working out twice a day and eating nearly perfect since I got out of the hospital, and I've only seen my weight increase. And last week I said to my wife, why am I even bothering?
Get on some peptides.
Well, yeah, I'm being really careful with a lot of stuff right now because
you probably got to talk to it. You probably have a little bit more. I'm like, I saw this online. I did all this research on this amino acid.
Yeah,
it's good.
I'm pretty careful. I didn't used to be. I'd be like, oh yeah, sure.
I know it's probably don't take my advice.
Yeah. So,
but I was so pissed. We came back from vacation this last week, and I'm in the airport, and I'm like, and she's looking through my bag. I'm like, I forgot my peptides. I left them in the hotel in the freaking because you got to keep them refrigerated in the little fridge, in the mini fridge. So I keep the peptides. I lose my peptides. I'm like, all my gains for the last 4 months are going to go away. Before we got, why I was a little late, because I was on the phone with the pharmacist checking to say, are my peptides coming in?
Gotcha. Yeah, I get it.
Because I have my priorities straight, right? Yeah. Absolutely.
Well,
I'll let you know. I'll stay on it for a little bit longer.
The research is pretty good on them.
Yes, it is.
I prior to all of this, I was on one that helped with kind of recovery and cognitive ability. I forget what the number is that they associated with it. And it was really beneficial.
Yeah.
Except, funny story, one night I go to my refrigerator, draw it out into the syringe and inject it into my skin.
Yeah.
And I looked down at my hand to just look at the vial for whatever reason. And it was my dog's insulin. I had injected myself with 30 units of insulin. So needless to say, I was
you're like passing out.
No, poison control called me every hour on the hour.
Did you bottom out? Because I'm diabetic, so I'm always need to check it and everything.
So I spent the night eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Oh, darn.
And drinking orange juice. So
that's a crap ton of insulin, man.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
And it's,
if you want to, I guess if that's the way you want to lose weight, man. Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. But dog insulin is slow releasing. So it was like,
oh my God,
it was stressful.
Yeah. So you had, so from your business life, you now are the CEO and owner of charter schools here in Phoenix, right?
That's right.
So tell me about that. But in your business origin, before that, you had another company that you sold.
Yep.
Which I'm always obsessed with guys who have successfully done either an acquisition or a sale. And so, what was that like?
Yeah. So my first business was a third party logistics company. And what we did is we did kind of the back end operations for e-commerce companies.
Okay.
So they would warehouse all their products with us. Mm-hmm. We would interface with their e-commerce sites. And when someone placed an order, it'd come through for us and we would ship it out.
How'd you get involved in this?
So supply chain and logistics was the career I kind of fell into after school.
Okay.
And it all started with, I started with a UPS store, and I really liked that business, that industry, and worked my way up the corporate ladder pretty quickly and found a lot of success doing that. And on the side, started building up this business.
Okay.
and eventually got to a place to where I could step away from corporate America and focus on this business full time.
That's so good. Like for me, like if you're an emerging entrepreneur and you want to go off on your own, you take that opportunity when you are getting a W-2 salary, when you're getting paid from somebody else. Yep. Learn. This is your opportunity to make moves and say, like, how do they do that? What doesn't work well? How do they do the logistics?
Yep, for sure.
And what's your costs and all of these things? And like, this is your school right here.
Yeah.
And get close enough to the dock where you can then jump off and start your own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, going out and raising money and all that sounds really sexy, but you learn most by bootstrapping something together and figuring it out.
I have always been really interested. When I go to the UPS store just down the street from our house, I'm like, can be a cash cow, honestly, because it's just little real estate, mostly. All these tiny little mailboxes that are $50 to $100 a month that people just pop in for. I mean, if you do that times 500 plus the copies and all the auxiliary benefits in a tiny tiny footprint, is, man, that thing, that's a great opportunity for a startup that you could really make something with.
Yeah, I would think so. I don't know what the franchise fees are and stuff like that. How successful that can be, but theoretically, anytime you can get that recurring revenue.
Yeah. Yours wasn't a franchise, right?
Your
company that you started.
No.
Yeah, I would never. I have 2 franchises. I probably would never do a franchise again. It's just too difficult to squeeze the juice out of it.
Yeah.
Because they're just pulling that 8% top line every single month.
Yeah, that's tough.
And so you got to be efficient operationally. And they say you can be an absentee owner, but you can't.
Yeah.
Like if you want to make it work, you have to be involved.
Yeah. Well, even it sounds glamorous, but you step away for any amount of time and you enter back in and the culture is just garbage. I mean, people need to see
the leader.
Yeah. You can't be absentee or off, doing whatever.
You can't delegate the culture.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah. Even right now we're, with Ohana, my main company, we have our main admin office in one part of town, but we have like 4 people in every office and it's just filling up everywhere. Everyone's uncomfortable. You got 3 or 4 finance people in one office, 7 case workers in a tiny space, everyone on phone calls. It's just miserable.
Yeah.
And we're stuck. So I found another space that my executive team and finance can go to, but it's like 20, 30 minutes away. Cheap rent, sublease. It's not going to cost us any money. So the risk is so minimal for us and it can alleviate a lot of pressure, especially for my exec team and my main leaders who need to have that deep mind work. Because we're constantly getting interrupted. We're constantly like hearing from other people. Everyone is so collaborative, just knocks on your door. You just get into something.
Yeah.
But now as I process through, we get ready to move. And how do you keep, as you diversify, as you separate out your locations, how do you maintain culture?
Yeah.
And how do you continue to do that? Because you have your charter schools, multiple different centers. How do you maintain that culture?
Yeah.
It's probably a challenge.
It has been historically. And, culture is and having a healthy culture is our number one priority. We believe that will drive every other business metric. So we put somebody on staff that is their entire job is to drive.
What's that position?
It's director of, it's like a chief of staff kind of role,
kind of like a COO role.
No,
not
no, because it's mostly
like is it like staff care?
People, yeah,
the people side,
professional development, retaining staff, all of that.
Are they like attached to the hip next to you, getting the vision, getting the core values, living it out, and then saying, all right, how do we drive this within the company?
Yeah, and really organizing events and professional development that, the professional development may be on a particular topic, but the culture is the undergird of all of it.
Okay.
So it really brings consistency into the picture to really drive that home.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we've implemented is a monthly town hall, company-wide town hall,
Okay.
where we build the agenda and talk through those topics. Prior to that, the staff is submitting questions that we're addressing on that call, and that gives a really good, even though we have to do it virtually because we're so spread out, it's a good connection point and an opportunity for them.
You have to have those predictable moment patterns of you are having these intentional connection points with your team.
Yeah.
And they have to hear from you. I used to think I could try to, I'm the creative one, always going off doing certain things. I'm like, no, I have to show up. We call it Ohana time. Our Ohana time, we eat together, no agenda, just bullshit with each other.
Yeah.
Chat and feel the love.
Yeah.
Feel the vibe. And that's like a culture builder. And it's something that is like, now we're 8 years old, we're 500 plus employees, but you cannot like delegate those small things anymore. You still have to do those small things. Like even if you have a big team, do for one, which you wish you could do for everyone. It's like, okay, sit down, have that conversation with it. Because probably what I've noticed is like, as I get higher up in leadership, like the people are getting more and more intimidated. I was leaving the office today to come here, and this one staff is just smiling and grinning like, hey, bud, how are you doing? And then the other manager's like, he says, he thinks you're so cool. I'm like, I guess it's better than he thinks you're a total asshole. Because I bet you someone else over there thinks that.
Yep.
I was like, dude, I'm cool because you're here, man. That's why.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I'm like, oh, dude, this is great. You made my day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
After I just left like a terrible meeting, and it was just like, let me reset before coming here.
Right. I get that.
Yeah.
And that's the burden of being the owner of the company is you've got to play all those different roles.
You do.
And be comfortable there.
Yeah.
And also like when you've had enough, being able to say, okay, I need to step back from this and recharge for a minute.
For sure.
Yeah.
So you had this warehouse company, you sold it.
Yeah.
You did an exit. Was it successful? Did you
was.
Unwind it? How did that go?
Yeah. So it was sold to a strategic buyer. So a competitor essentially.
Were you flirting with them for a while? How did you get connected with the strategic buyer?
So I had been the business had gotten to a point to where I was ready to exit it in terms of size and my interests and all of that.
So you exited warehouse.
Yep. Got that sold. And
then how do you decide what to do with your life?
Yeah. I mean,
did you have to work or did you want to work or?
Wanted to. I mean, at that time I was 37.
Okay.
I still have a lot of runway.
I know.
I'd be so bored out of
my mind. Can you imagine?
I couldn't handle it.
Oh, my wife would kill me. And I would kill I don't even know. That would be painful.
Yeah. There's only so much golf you can play.
Exactly. Like my assistant always says, Ryan, you are sick. She's like, I've never met someone who loves Mondays. I'm like, oh, Monday's coming. I'm so excited for a good Monday.
Yeah.
Like line up my calendar. Who do I got to meet with? What deal can I get going?
Yeah.
How can I move the ball? I'm like, man, I love Mondays. Imagine just golfing every Monday.
No.
No,
thanks. Every once in a while, I'm okay with it. But, so it was, I was talking to my brother and he was in a transition point too in his career.
Okay.
He was a high level executive in the energy business.
Okay.
And we were both talking like, okay, well, like what's next for us? And there were two criteria is, number one, it needed to make an impact on society. And it needed to have a good business model, meaning it could be scalable and profitable.
Yeah.
Our mom was a educator, superintendent, and so we had somewhat of an insight into education. And when we really thought about it, we could provide these teens with food or clothing or jobs or any of those things, which are all good things, and we do that.
Yeah.
That's what's called wraparound services. But when you can provide them with an education that provides them choices for the rest of their life, right? When they're not getting their high school diploma, they get the disadvantages are significant. The barriers are really high.
Right.
You can't even enlist in the military if you want to without a high school diploma. So that's where we really dug in is that is a way you can make a major impact on a specific population of
and I
people.
bet your history, your life, and being a trouble teen or being at risk yourself, played a huge role.
Yeah.
What I found, like every time you're trying to find your purpose, one of the best ways you can do is look back at your life. What is deep in you? What injustice? What is part of your story that either has brought pain or healing? And that could be a compass to like, what do I need to invest my life in?
Yeah.
And for you, it sounds like education was a big part of that.
Yeah.
So for me, I was a part of a school board, got elected to school boards. I was on like felt like the political side versus the business side. How do you find a school? How does the business side all work?
Yeah. So it's highly regulated by multiple government entities. So that's challenging. Kind of barrier number one is that side of it. With our the first school we acquired, timing was really important, and we found one that was, had the business model that we wanted, had the general philosophy and direction we wanted, and sellers who wanted to sell, owners who wanted to sell.
How'd you find
just by building relationships?
Okay,
yeah.
So do you just start and I've done 2 acquisitions this last year, and they have every time have been through relationship.
Yeah.
I have never done an acquisition going on a website and finding one and just clicking and getting more information.
Yeah.
Every successful acquisition has been through relationship.
Yeah.
And it takes time.
It does.
Yeah. How long did it take the whole process?
Oh, for our first one, that was probably
from the day you knocked on the door.
Yeah, probably over a year.
Yeah.
And the most recent one we did was 4 years in the making. Yeah.
Did you any fall through? Have you done other ones that fell through?
The last one we did, if you would ask me this a year ago, I would have said it's a not yet.
Okay.
But it eventually got to a place where the owner was ready to sell. They just needed to get there.
Yeah.
But once they were ready, they called us. So, the days of a teacher with a good idea that wants to open their own charter school, those are probably gone, because it takes quite the legal team and the fortitude and the finances to get through that process.
Yeah. Okay.
And we have another program because our primary niche that we serve are students that have dropped out. They need a lot of flexibility. That program is progress based.
Okay.
So they need to get a certain amount of work done to be counted as attending.
You're working with kids or students that either have a child, right? Or either got out of detention,
Yep.
Youth and foster care system.
Yep.
Like it's very at risk.
Yeah.
So you're going to need to wrap them really tight with supports.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah. And you're highly successful. Like you have one of the top rated charter schools. You have great teachers, great education, high rated grades, especially for this type of school.
Right.
And you love them well.
Yeah. And that's our whole thing is we kind of our slogan, if you will, that we've attached to this is we're building a culture of care and service. So, and that goes for our team. So that's the way we interact with each other as an organization, but that also is for our students, because you cannot give what you first haven't received.
That's right.
So by giving that to each other, we can then give that to our students. And that's really kind of what's driving us forward and why we're building what we're building is to build that culture.
So what's next for this?
Impact.
Okay.
Continue to expand our impact. There's 50,000 students a year that drop out of school in the state of Arizona, 1.2 million nationwide.
Okay.
So the need has always been there. It's not largely talked about.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk about
the
that.
need is harder now.
Yeah.
I feel like doing business now is harder than ever been. I think doing good work like that can even be more challenging, especially within the state.
Yeah. And COVID changed things.
Yeah.
Even with we did a survey on a couple thousand kids a year ago, and the results came back that their preference is to be isolated, right? They prefer to just be at home by themselves behind a computer screen doing school. And we saw through that it's really hard to be successful when you're doing that.
Right.
But there's still a huge draw to it.
It's more comfortable.
Yeah.
It's my security blanket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't have to interact with anybody.
Yeah.
They can just
I don't want to be
roll out of bed.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's becoming like this. I am really worried, honestly, for what the workforce is going to look for, what our kids are going to be like, is like the amount of screen time and the amount of just being able to be alone.
Yeah.
Like that.
That was another shocking thing that came back on these surveys is we asked the parents, like, how much screen time do you think your kids get a day?
Yeah.
And their estimation was 3 to 4 hours a day, which is still a lot.
Yeah.
We asked the kids the same question. The average answer was 9 hours a day. That's mind blowing.
That is a lot of video games.
Yeah.
You are going to be a thriving young person. You are going to make it.
Well, I mean, the truth is for the drivers and the hard workers, like they've got a major competitive advantage. Right
totally
now.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like if you're going to be sitting on your tablet all the time, man, I mean, it's like a drug, even in my own house. Like it's a great reinforcement. Like you come home from school, you do the homework, you have to do your chore, deal with the chickens, do whatever chore you got to do, get your lunch ready for the next day. Then you can get on your tablet.
It's a privilege.
Wow, what a surprise. You actually do your chore. For the longest time, we say, oh, you do it at the end of the night. It's like pulling teeth. Never done. Now look at this room. It's amazing. Just give me my drug. Yeah. Give me my tablet. Give me my Roadbox.
Yeah, for sure.
My 7-year-old said this morning, he's like, hey Dad, do you think I could get like a cool camera like you guys have for when I want to stream and be a YouTuber? I'm like, son, you're not gonna be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
As I'm out there having this YouTube channel. Maybe like father, like son.
Yeah, maybe.
I am producing what I have shown him, I guess.
Well, in that big research that was released, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 months ago about TikTok brain.
Oh, I never seen that.
You didn't? Oh, so
maybe
really
because I'm on TikTok, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's research on kind of a couple things. Attention span.
Mm-hmm.
So they were trying to figure out like what's the average attention span of society at this point, given TikTok culture, and it's reduced down to about 45 seconds because of the
the swipe. Yeah.
But one of the other things in this research that they did is they surveyed kids from China on, what do they want to be when they grow up?
Yeah.
And the answers were doctor, astronaut, those kind of big career, big dreams to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And
American kids, YouTuber,
they wanted
podcaster,
to be influencers.
Influencer, yeah.
Was the top answer, which is a market shift.
Yeah.
The astronaut, doctor, lawyer, those are typically American answers.
Yeah.
Big aspirational things.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's influencer, which, that's
you only get so many free pieces of clothing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you. Yeah. This is it's going to be an interesting thing to like, it has made me as a dad. And maybe this is even for you as like when you went through your stroke, it's like it makes you want to hold your kids closer and like you have to be the influence of your kids. Like you have to be the one driving the culture, being the number one influence. Like kids naturally, teenagers want to hang out with their friends, but now their friends are almost becoming TikTok. Their friends are becoming what the influencers on YouTube are doing.
Right.
And you can't watch that at every single moment.
Yeah. And I think it's, some people will fall into the mindset of like, as their kids get older, like, oh, it's too late.
Yeah. I don't think so.
I don't think so. It's never too late to love them and make love the priority.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not accept everything that's going on in their life, and you don't have to, but they need to feel loved and supported, and that your home is the safest place for them, and just continuing to pursue that. And that is one thing that we try to be really intentional about, is talking about anything and everything, including really hard things in our home, so that our kids are learning about those things from us, not their knucklehead friends that know nothing about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, my last question that I have for you, number 2, is you have to come back. This is like exactly the kind of conversation that we want to keep having here. I always like to end with this, is at the end of your life, what do you want to be remembered for?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'd love to be remembered for the impact that I had on this world, and making a meaningful difference in the lives of the people that I was involved in. But I think more than that is being remembered for the love that I showed people.
That's great.
That everyone that was in my life felt loved and cared for by me.
Yeah.
Which I'm not great at. Sometimes I can get so like mission focused. It's
Sure.
something that I'm really trying to be more aware of, is like relationally.
Yeah. Connecting and stuff.
Yeah.
And let me say, from my perspective, like, I only know you on the other side of stroke, and maybe it's the new version of yourself, but like, I feel like you're a very present, very caring man, and your kids are blessed and your staff are blessed because of that. And the impact that you're making for not just students, but the people you're around is significant. And that's a really powerful thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's encouraging, because and I'm sure you feel this at times, like you're heading a direction, and sometimes you just don't know if am I doing this right?
Yeah.
You feel a little lost in the woods sometimes. And feedback is always good and helpful.
Yeah. Well, man, like, honestly, like, I can't wait to see what the future holds. Not because of like how driven and successful you are, but honestly, when we hung out with your wife, like the love that you have for her, the impact that you're making for your community is a real thing.
Yeah.
And your story is powerful. And this is the thing that actually is going to bring hope and healing to so many people. So this whole thing is like helping people discover their purpose, unleash their purpose for their life. And I imagine that this was part, like, obviously the journey that God has you on, like, you would never undo it. Like, this is part of unleashing that for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's so important that as people are thinking about like their purpose and what they're passionate about, you can apply that where God has you.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that you just need to upend your life and listen to some Instagram influencer on day trading, or whatever it is, that that passion and that purpose can be applied being the best teacher you can be, or being the best caseworker that you can be. And then God will, when you're faithful in those things, God will continue to open doors. And I think that we've both experienced that in our life.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, James, for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And so until next week, may you unleash your purpose so you can profit in your business, faith, and life.
Thanks for joining us for the Unleash Your Purpose podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll see you next week.